And please indicate also the session number if possible, and of course the speaker you are directing your question to. That makes it easier for us to direct it to the right speaker. And when you're asking questions and during the Q&A and the interactive sessions, it would be nice if you can activate your camera. But during the rest of the parts, the presentation parts, please keep your camera off. And the meeting is being recorded so that you can listen back, and others who cannot make it can also listen to it. Okay, so much for the more boring parts. We will now move more into the interesting part of this session. And actually, for that, I also want to give the floor in a minute to my FOODPathS colleague Nicola Hassan. But before that, maybe just to also let you know that we have a very diverse group around the virtual table at the moment. Many people from different sectors and organizations registered, really the quadruple helix from government to universities, research institutions, NGOs, private sector also on the list. So we have a very nice and diverse group from within Europe, but also outside Europe. I also saw on the list participants from Brazil, for instance. So that is very nice to see. And essentially, yeah, we're going to look at how can we bring change to the funding landscape for the better to really support transition of sustainable food systems. So I would now like to give the floor to Nicola Hassan. Please, Nicola, take us through the objectives and some of the things to come for this session.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jasmina. And thank you also for organizing, and thanks to your team from SonMW. Excellent work. And I'm really happy to welcome everyone here this morning. So good morning from my side. My name is Nicola Hassan from Research Center Jülich, and also associated to the SASFood ARANET. Yeah, some words of introduction so that you know or remember what you signed up to. Yeah, the objectives of today and also our offers to you are really to share information about the FOODPathS CSA and the development towards the Sustainable Food Systems Partnership. So this will be a great part today. This is our first funders forum, so we would like to give you the state of play. Also the relation between FOODPathS and the partnership. How do these two interrelate, and why do we need those two? We want to give you some impression what lies ahead, and we will have busy weeks and months to come. And we would also like to generate some ideas for the future funding mechanisms, and that will be our focus. The funding, I'm sorry, somebody's calling me. Sorry. Yeah, the future funding mechanisms in the partnership. So we want to collect experiences and good practices and have an inspirational exchange with you. And the last point is really to generate enthusiasm, to join our FOODPathS project, the funders network, the map, and of course also the future partnership. So what do we need from you? Well, we need your brains, we need your creative ideas to bring the change to the funding landscape and see what's out there and where can we go. So what is possible to do jointly together regarding the funding. We're looking for practical and inspiring examples. We will share some with you for transdisciplinary funding that supports food system transition. And we need your insight into your interests. So what are the questions that you have? What questions need to be answered so that you can really be clear about the future partnership and what lies ahead? And just a picture that I like a lot when describing the FOODPathS CSA and the partnership is this little tugboat. And the big boat is really the partnership. So when it moves, it can really make a change. It can really bring a lot of change and big movement, big waves. But to bring this ship out and to make it really move, you need these little tugboats to really get started. And these tugboats are quite strong, but yeah, you need them to steer. So I hope that the CSA will be something like that, giving the partnership a good start and also stewarding the partnership along its beginning. So with this, I would like to share the agenda for today. And we're already into the introduction session. And the next agenda point will be the talk of Daniela Lüth from the European Commission on the Sustainable Food Systems Partnership. So we're really happy to have you here with us. Then Hugo de Vries, coordinator of FOODPathS CSA from INRAE, will give insights into the CSA project. And after these two presentations, we will have a Q&A session hosted by Ivana, our team member. And after that, it's me again. I will tell a little bit about what we plan to do building up the funders network. After that, again, some question and answers and a short break before we are heading into an interactive group session. We will split up in several groups, and there you will have the chance to really interact stronger. We will report back, and after rounding up, we hope to be done by 12:30. And before that, I hope that we will really have an inspiring session this morning. So thank you very much for your attention so far, and I would give back the word to Jasmina to chair us through the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for taking us through the objectives and the expectations, and extra points for keeping it within 8 minutes. So that's really nice. We can stick to the time. Yeah, and I really would like to now give the floor to Daniela Lüth from the European Commission, DG RTD. Daniela, could you please take us through the sustainable food systems partnership world, or so to speak? Please,
thank you
Daniela.
very much. Good morning, everyone. A pleasure seeing so many people. I just see more than 80 people connected now, so that is fantastic. I will just use 10 minutes to guide you a bit through the partnership with respect to connecting to policy objectives, the process we are in with leading to the partnership, and also giving a bit of state of play when it comes to different funders. And for that one, I would share my screen. And let me know if you can see the first slide.
I can see it's loading, so I'm sure it will come in a minute.
Okay. It says resume share. Can you see it now?
Yes, I can see it now, but there's still the black rectangle in the screen, so maybe you need to move that.
I moved it, but you see the full screen?
Yes.
Perfect.
But it's not in presentation mode yet.
Huh. Okay, let's see. Let's give me a...
Sure. No worries. And if it doesn't work,
it's always in the it worked in the actual
exactly
trial,
we just tested it,
but we try it here again.
Yes, now
wonderful.
It's working. Great.
Great. Thank you very much. I will take you through very quickly through these three aspects in the next 10 minutes, starting with the policy context and expected outcomes. And if you stay with me on the left-hand side of the slide, so I think that's why we're all here today. We know the biosphere is crossing planetary boundaries in many ways. We have land use change, forest degradation, freshwater depletion, loss of biosphere integrity. So lots of challenges at hand, while we have at the same time really global policy initiatives. We have the Sustainable Development Goals, the Paris Agreement, we had the United Nations Food System Summit last year. But on the EU level also, of course, we have the CAP reform, we have the European Green Deal, and we have the Farm to Fork. And I just want to draw the connection to the Farm to Fork of this partnership and show you how really well interlinked these both are and how they need each other and enforce each other. Because the Farm to Fork will set out a framework for sustainable food system, the FSFS, end of next year. There was an open public consultation. And when we look at the outcome of Sustainable Food Systems Partnership, it really complements what Farm to Fork is trying to achieve in building up a new wide functioning partnership based on collective and inclusive action, providing the knowledge base for realizing European sustainable food system policies. And I think the times we're in has shown that the transition towards a resilient and sustainable food systems and changing these complex systems will require more and not less evidence-based assessments. So science and research and innovation has a more than ever important role to play. And here the partnership really also contributes to creating a strong foundation of a European sustainable food system research area connected to global initiatives I just mentioned, with harmonized EU-wide policies and regulations, while also respecting locally diverse contexts. And when we look at the overarching objectives of both, they really work really well together, just focusing on the right-hand side to collectively develop and implement an EU-wide committed research innovation partnership to accelerate the transition towards healthy diets that are safe and sustainably produced and consumed in resilient EU and global food systems. And that is really also what the Farm to Fork strategy and framework aims to achieve. And just to highlight on the right-hand side, there is also Food 2030, which preceded already the Farm to Fork, but it's a very strong foundation we work here in RTD together with, which is very much anchored in Horizon Europe and in the partnership. And it's really cornerstone in system thinking, and that provides a vision and narrative for a systemic approach, how we think and do INRAE, and with whom. So multi-stakeholder, and I think looking at the list of people joining today, that's already a very good starting point, and also the leverage points and for what, so the objective. And it's really now about creating impact-driven INRAE, via which we can develop, test, and deploy solutions to the urgent, complex, and interconnected challenges that lie ahead. So Food 2030, really a cornerstone of Horizon Europe and the partnership, and a long list of other relevant policies I will not get into now, but just to give you really a short overview of the policy connection. And when we go into the process, so the process, of course, is part of Horizon Europe, the next strategic the next work program 23-24, and in line with other Cluster 6 Horizon Europe partnerships that are also foreseen at the same time. And just to guide you through the timeline we had. So, and of course, the partnership preparation already started way before that in 2019. But just to focus here on when the strategic research and innovation agenda, the SRIA, started to be developed in January 2022. And at the same time, there was a parallel process also from the EC side to ask for commitments from member states, associated countries, and candidate associated countries. So we sent requests for commitments for each partnership to each country. While at the same time, in summer, we developed a corresponding topic in the Horizon Europe work program. And for that, you will find more information, and I really invite everyone to join the info days. You have the link here, and I can also put it in the chat afterwards, on the 13th of December, and a brokerage event on the 18th of December. And this is a fantastic opportunity also to ask questions, to engage related to the topic and the partnership. Now, At the same time, we have a public open consultation on the SRIA right now, which is open until 19th of December. And to really with a goal to finalize the SRIA end this year, early next year. At the same time, where the calls for proposals will be open very soon under the Horizon Europe Web Program, and the calls will be open for 90 days, so that the consortium can submit a proposal in spring next year, including its first annual draft work program, which is based on the SRIA. And in that, there will be a single grant agreement. So this has been done differently for different partnerships, but what is envisioned here is that the partnership will be implemented through a single Horizon Europe grant agreement, covering the full duration of the partnership. And the grant agreement awarded as a result of this call will exceptionally receive additional funding through future Horizon Europe work programs. And this exception will apply exclusively for the partnership. The solution is preliminary for now and pending approval from DG Budget, but that is something we work with for now and which is foreseen. So this is the overview in a nutshell in terms of process. So as you can see, many important dates coming up still before Christmas. And just to leave with a few words on the funders and partners. So we have asked from the Commission, we have asked member states, associated countries, and candidate associated countries for each partnership, and we have a total indicative contribution so far, which is 170 million cash and 114 million in kind. As you can see, most member states have already responded to it, 23, and also with a range of associated and candidate associated countries. Now, for the total contribution of Horizon Europe for this particular partnership, the EC contribution is 175 million euros for the whole duration of the lifetime, with a co-fund rate of 30%. That means there is a total foreseen budget of 525. Now, the co-fund rate is always given of what member states and associated countries bring in. So if there is less contribution from the countries, also there will be less from the EC. So it will stick to 30%. Now, this is an indication, and we asked, as I said, already in spring, and the more important is this funders forum where really concretely is discussed how can that look like. But just that was very important also for us, of course, if there is enough interest for these partnerships, and we're very happy to see that there is, and that is the case for all Horizon Europe Cluster 6 partnerships that are foreseen with a call for 2023. When we look at the food system, and I already indicated how the partnerships really connected to policies that really link to the food system thinking. And you find that here, of course, also in the draft SRIA, that the partnership really looks at all elements and activities that relate to production, processing, distribution, marketing, preparation, consumption of food, and also acknowledges the interactions between them, and also the feedback loops that happen, that of course causes a certain degree of complexity, but that also means we need all players. We need all players in the partnership, and the partnership is open to member states, associated countries, but also others like regions, RPOs, and also new partners such as foundations and the private sector. In principle, everyone that has a legal entity can join the partnership. So that's kind of the starting point. When it comes to conflict of interest, that has been discussed, of course, in detail. The current guideline we have is that we still wait for green light of the legal service, but what is envisioned is the guidance to allow RPOs to participate as beneficiaries in a Horizon Europe grant agreement, implementing a co-funded partnership, while at the same time participating in the external calls organized by the partnership. What that means is that in the grant agreement preparation, we asked the consortium to propose a clear list of beneficiaries, of course, and which department of beneficiary that will have the responsibility of drafting call text and managing the award procedure. Also identify the beneficiaries which can apply for funding under the co-funded call for proposals, and also explain measures to mitigate potential conflict of interest or unequal treatment of applications. And as said, we wait for full guidelines, but this is, I think, what we for now can work with. So everyone is aware of the potential conflict, but also of the importance of RPOs having a clear guideline. So I'm very confident that there will be a clear solution given what we've already received as information. And with this last positive note, I hand back to Yasmina. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniela, for guiding us through this. And I think what you said, about research and innovation having a more than ever an important role to play at the moment, given the huge challenges we face with food systems and climate change and societal issues. I think, that's very. I think that's something to really emphasize, and that we should strive for impact, and also something to think about when we go into our groups. And thank you also for highlighting the more procedural and regulatory process around it. I would now like to give the floor to Hugo de Vries, coordinator of FOODPathS, from INRAE to take us through the FOODPathS CSA, and also how that relates to the partnership, thinking back to the lovely picture that Nicola showed us with the big tanker and the little tugboat.
Yes, thank you very much, Yasmina, and also to Nicola, of course, and Ivana, and all my FOODPathS colleagues of the FOODPathS family, because this presentation is there thanks to all of them. I hope that it will start to work in the PowerPoint version. That is which
I can see your screen, Hugo, but you still need to put it on presentation mode.
I'm trying here to do everything like Daniela. Maybe I just stop and I'll load it again.
Yeah, and also when we practiced it just now, it was working, so I'm sure we'll get it to work. Yes, I can see your screen, but
you don't see it yet?
I see the screen, but it's not in presentation mode. Otherwise, I can also try to share it. I think something is happening now, so let's give it. Yeah, but it's now in a different mode where you see the next slide as well. So if you can just put it in sort of main presentation mode.
No, that is. Well,
but I think this is also legible. So I think.
Can you see it? Yes.
Yeah, I think this is good, Hugo. I think we shouldn't lose more time. So you can just go ahead. We can read everything on the slide.
Okay, now you can already look for the next one if you are bored by the current slide. Well, good morning to you all, and many thanks for participating. I think it's a very important event, because who is not sharing this ambition to try to contribute to our sustainable food systems of tomorrow? And I'm very grateful for Daniela as well for her presentation, but also for her role as a guide in the full process. I will say a few words about the CSA, FOODPathS, where you already see the logo of. And this is positioned in the context of the creation of the large partnership, which has a storyline, of course, which started, as Daniela said, in 2019. I don't go to the needs. I think you all know them. You all share them, or you contributed to the evidence report. There are several outcomes of that written in documents, what we call our actions. There is a narrative, there is a template. You can download them at the Commission side or at the SCAR Strategic Working Group Food System side. The SCAR is animated by Monique Axelos and Mina Huttunen. So also you can pose questions to them. And if you then look to the current status, as Daniela said, we are now in the open consultation phase of the SRIA that needs to be the document that will be used by the future partnership consortium. And in this trajectory, there is a CSA, but one more word about the content of the partnership. In this full process, the expert had decided there will be 4 focus points, and it's an open consultation, so you can criticize them, you can comment with, come up with suggestions, highly appreciated. But those 4 are for the moment change the way we eat or what we eat, change the way we process and supply, change the way we connect citizens and food production, and change the way we govern along all scales from local to global. And there are 4 horizontal activities that needs to make research and innovation in those areas possible. First, of course, why we are here, the co-funding strategies and programming. But then we also need to have data to know where we are on our ways towards sustainable food systems. We need to experiment to know if and what we have in mind really works in practice. And we need then, of course, to share our knowledge and also use that for our education programs. So that is the basics of our partnership. As you can see, it is post-farming, post-fishing oriented, but we cannot talk about sustainable food systems if we forget the others. I come back to that. All topics are considered from a food system lens, and this is also a remark that my colleague Niels Hallberg often made. We need to look not to a specific topic. We are not going to develop a specific technology or a specific functional ingredient in this partnership. That is in all the current programs. All topics that are dealt with needs to be looked at from a food system lens, thus needs to cover different elements of a food system. One of the first who described it in a very clear way, I think, was the University of Oxford, where they in fact look to our food systems. The activities need to be fueled by drivers, and their outcomes need to be feedback that we can adjust our courses. Niels Hallberg and Henk Westbroek presented it in a little bit different way. They look to what are our key building blocks of food systems, not to focus on them separately, but look to the connections between them. Because if we like to choose a leverage point, we need to know what are the consequences of this leverage point for all elements in a food system. And very recently, we presented it also in a different way, what we use in FOODPathS now. Because if we say that we want to be inclusive, it's also citizens, how can we, with very different actors, work out new scenarios in food systems? Then we need to have a methodology that all people know. And I think we all have been playing games in our lives, tennis, soccer, etc. We all know that we cannot play tennis at a football court or chess on a dice board. So we all know that there are playing fields that are important to look at. There are players, there are pieces, there are rules. There's the time, there is an outcome, win and lose, and within this context we can make our moves. And if there is then an objective, for example, an objective of the farm to fork strategy, it maybe enters somewhere in the systems, but it will impact all of them. So that is what we need to understand, and that is one of our roles in FOODPathS, but especially hopefully in our future partnership. This is the context for the partnership. If you like to go to such a huge partnership as Daniela has shown, to make such a big step, the Commission decided there needs to be a preparatory action, that is FOODPathS. So we have a mini partnership as a consortium. And we have this mini partnership thanks to the partners who are all chosen to represent a network of local communities, of regions, of universities or other academia, of industrial partners from small and medium enterprises till the big ones, with farmers, with foundations, with different countries, funders and ministries, and they are all represented to form an inclusive partnership. So we hope that our consortium is able to develop the prototype partnership. So that is our ambition. Of course, it's a governance call. So what we finally need to develop is a governance model. We will not take one of the governance models that are already present because are that the right ones? We can really ask ourselves, are the current one, which also are sometimes considered a little bit static with groups working either as expert in one panel or the other, is that the partnership model that we like to use for our work? We don't think so. So what we then need to do is to rebuild a governance model from scratch. And what are our considerations? We have depicted it as here. Our partnership should be able to face the challenges, to observe them, to learn and to adapt our courses thanks to experimenting in case studies, thanks to new knowledge that we hopefully obtain in research, innovation, science policy and education programs, and thanks to the policies that are there or needs to be developed. And we need to unite them, we need to orchestrate that in such a way that our bird is following the appropriate course. But we also realize, as I've said before, that we cannot do it alone, so we need to form a flock with other birds that we jointly go in the right direction. Those other birds are the ones who are representing other partnerships. They are listed here, and hopefully we can share principles like diversity, circularity, and so on. We can share approaches, we can share data, we can share experimenting, and we can share knowledge and communication ways. What are then the key elements of our governance model? If we want to be adaptive all the times, that we also in our functioning follow a systems approach, we need to adapt a kind of systemic way of working. We need to develop jointly strategies. We need to learn from co-creation cases. We need to be able to share that in networks. And we need not to develop the SRIA, that is already done, but be able and capable of exploiting it and give feedback to it. Because suppose that we choose topics that will have a detrimental effect somewhere else on our planet, in other continents, then we need to readapt our courses. So we need to look to the potential trade-offs and co-benefits. Those are then depicted in the way we organize our work. All are familiar with work packages and so on. We have chosen a set of work packages that are interconnected, that are at the beginning driven by the societal challenges. That is what will drive the funding strategies, but by following really appropriate funding strategies, we need to explore, we need to experiment, we need to learn from that, we need to focus. We cannot do everything. Even if we have a large budget, we cannot do everything. And with that, we have to analyze what are our trade-offs and feed that all back to the funding strategies. So the funders, and that is for today, they will put in motion this partnership and make it possible to run it. But with the others, it becomes a partnership. Only funders is not a partnership. So together we will be hopefully able to address the challenges and to reach the sustainable outcomes of the future. To end up with an example, if, for example, if we take the figures of the World Health Organization very close to our heart, we need about 600 billion euros a year to give all people a decent, sustainable and healthy diet in the world. That is 10 times the budget that is foreseen for 7 years for the full partnership. So whatever we do, we realize we are a minor player. Thus the best we can do is try to get this snowball running, that all people step on board and all jointly are able to reach those sustainable outcomes. That is our ambition, not to stay in our small corner, but to work with all who are motivated and help our trajectories. With that, I'd like to thank you and hopefully look forward to lively discussions and your creative inputs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hugo, for taking us through FOODPathS and its different elements, its roles, and especially emphasizing that this is so much more than a partnership of funders, that we really need everyone on board from different sectors and different backgrounds and different ways of thinking even. I saw a lot of questions come in through the chat. Ivana, could you perhaps guide us through the questions and make sure that they get to Hugo or Daniela for whomever they are for?
Thank you, Yasmina, and thank you, Hugo and Daniela, for a very rich introduction. As you can see in the chat, we have already started with lots of questions, and thank you, Daniela, for taking already some of them in the chat. I think that we can maybe just go through them and highlight some of them, and then remaining, Daniela, you can also answer in person in a plenary. I think that for Hugo, maybe the questions are still coming because you just finished your presentation. So I think the first question was from Matilde regarding the relationship between CSA and the EC, and that has been answered in the chat. I will just go through some of them, and then Daniela, if you would like to emphasize something maybe for the plenary, it would be nice to hear it, because in the chat I think it's quite, yeah, it's not easy to link the answer with the question immediately. And there was also a question from David, which I think is relevant for many of our participants, about participation of the member states, associated countries, and especially how to deal with the status of the further colleagues that are maybe from New Zealand or Canada. There was also a question about Israel in this connection, and then important question on how these countries then participate in the calls. So maybe to start with this this cluster, and then we move with the next.
Yes, thank you very much. So just to highlight a few things beyond the chat. So there was a question how also CSA and partnership match together, and we really see the CSA as a preparatory action to get the partnership up to speed. So a very important cornerstone. And what you see, for example, this Funders Forum is organized by FOODPathS, and it's very much crucial for setting up the partnership. And we have similar setups for other partnerships also, and that is really helpful to work together and to lift the partnership activities, so to say. And we have a very good connection in terms of that people being part of the CSA already were very much involved in the SRIA creation, so very well aware of what the partnership aims to achieve. So I think this is a wonderful setup and really good team effort together. Then the question of who can participate. So you have to be an associated country to Horizon Europe to join the partnership. We also asked the candidate associated countries because, of course, that status can change. But in principle, you have to be an associated country. Now, there was the question, how do the non-associated, is there a way to participate? Honestly, I don't have the answer to that right now, but we'll cross-check also with our horizontal unit if there is a way to join. Then there was also the question on the single grant agreement, which I mentioned. So there is a single grant agreement foreseen. Exceptionally, the partnership will receive additional funding from other work programs. And if other partners want to join, that is then a classical amendment needed for future partners. So I hope I covered
Daniela,
part of it.
So an interesting question regarding the how many RPOs can be allowed in the consortium. Is there a certain balance how this combination of different partners is envisaged? I think this is a question by Nicola.
Yeah, so thanks for that. Yeah, so there is no, I mean, there is no clear cutoff mentioned. And the question always comes up, how many partners do make sense? How to work together. Now, when we look at partnerships that are already in place, they work very differently. For example, the partnership PARC has 200 members, but then only 40 are part of the consortium and another 160 are affiliated partners. Those are the partners that do not sign the grant agreement, but they are affiliated. So they still have a stake with not being fully part of it. So I think each partnership has to define a bit what works. Now for RPOs, of course, the more RPOs join, the more complex it becomes to define potential conflict of interest or avoid potential conflict of interest. But we do not have a clear cutoff. So I think first an assessment of how many RPOs would be interested to join, and then it would be identifying how to make that work, basically.
I think, thanks, Daniela. I think, Hugo, you have a question for Daniela?
Oh, sorry, the microphone. No, what I like to do, the question about the associate countries, I like to come back to this question, because in the CSA, we have one work package focused on working globally and exchanging best practices. I presume we can learn a lot from what's taking place in Canada, New Zealand, in Costa Rica, in Ecuador. It doesn't matter where, and what we like to do is to exchange our best practices. That could be variable, that could be in school programs, that could be roles of musea in motivating people to join activities, that could be in new business configurations where there is zero loss idea about joint ways of using our resources. It doesn't matter what kind of topic, but we really like to exchange with you the best practices. So we hope it's not just a participation of, but a real exchange of best insights. That's the only way to accelerate, I think, the trajectories towards sustainable food systems. So if you like to be involved in that, please let us know.
Daniela, I'm analyzing a chat. It has become a PhD thesis by now, with a really rich participation. There is a connected question about how the internal-external calls will look like from Astrid. So is it something like we are knowing them from other joint programming initiatives? And then David had posed connected question if non-associated countries will be permitted to co-fund external calls as external funders, so like New Zealand. Or so maybe if you have reflection on this concept of the internal-external calls, how this will evolve under the partnership.
Yes, so the internal external calls, that is similar to other programs. So in the internal calls, you can use the in-kind contribution, basically. And then for the external calls, you use the in-cash contribution with external providers. And then in internal, of course, you use the consortium to carry out certain activities. For example, when it comes to creating infrastructures, that would be a classical internal call. But the consortium, of course, there is a lot of freedom also for the partnership to decide how they frame it and for what things internal and external make most sense in total. And then there was a question, of course, there is a difference in being part of the partnership and being beneficiary. And there was I'm just reading here at the same time in the chat. Third countries can participate but cannot be beneficiary. I would check that also. I'm actually on another line with another colleague of mine from the horizontal unit, so I will write that in the chat once I have an answer to that. Thank you.
Hugo, would you have some further comments? I see your hand.
Yeah, also on
Please.
the internal, external calls. Thank you very much, Astrid, for your question and for joining us. It's a key topic in the discussion of food passes, because what we, and it was one of our partners said it in our consortium, what we don't want is just a series of fragmented projects. So on one hand, we need to have tools that cannot maybe be developed in individual projects and infrastructures, and so now infrastructures is another question, of course, because that could deal more with S3, but tools or methodologies, that could be one thing to integrate results. But on the other hand, we also, in making steps from individual results towards really substantial contributions wherever in Europe or in the world, we think that internal activities or coherent activities are therefore also necessary. That's the first thinking, but of course we take this point very seriously to give some descriptions about what we think could be useful for the future partnership.
Daniela?
Yeah, I
please.
just saw there was another question also, and I quickly want to respond to it. If APOs being involved in the FOODPathS can also join the partnership? Yes, they can. We do not see any concern from that side. I think I just
Thank
saw
you.
that.
That
Thank you.
that is very important. There was a question from Stefano Grande also, if the grant agreement will cover 2 years period or the entire period, or if that is already kind of indicated in some manner.
Yeah, that will be the whole duration. So the grant agreement will be for the whole duration of the partnership. That is foreseen. We need the final proof for that, but that is what is envisioned now, where the partnership will receive additional funding from future work programs, but it will be one grant agreement. And that will also be specified in the call respectively. So of course the consortium then knows how to prepare the proposal.
Daniela, thank you for this many good news, I think, on many aspects of preparation for the partnership. I have seen that there was one question from Matilde, maybe that is for Hugo, regarding are there parties who have indicated willingness to lead the future partnership, or maybe also for Daniela, if there is any indication regarding this aspect.
Yeah, here I'll give the floor to Daniela.
There could be also internal processes.
Maybe.
I mean, this is if it was probably 100% clear, it would have been announced. But if there are any indications about the process or things, maybe it's valuable for the participants to know to the extent possible. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So there have been, of course, internal discussions who would lead the partnership. I think the country itself, that's up to them now to kind of come to the fore, while nothing has been official at this point.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniela. I think that maybe only from Astrid Willener, I'm not sure about the participation of Switzerland, because this is a non-EU country, but I understand that the preoccupation is, or the concern is, that the country can participate but cannot be the beneficiary, or that at least is understanding. Maybe there is more further information about it.
Yeah, that's a question related to how globally other countries can join. Also, I don't have an answer right now to that, but we check that internally and get back to you with that one. There was also another question on the info days. I just want to respond to that very quickly. So I shared the link. Please register to the event, and there you will see also the timing. The partnership call will be presented in Destination 2. That is the 13th of December. So please have a look at the link there. You can register and then join the sessions online, and also can ask questions if you want to.
Now I look to the main chairs, Yasmina and Nicola.
Yes.
I think that we've been quite exhausting with the questions, but you know, once you start, I think everybody gets inspired. So maybe this is a main question and answer session feedback, and then maybe Daniela can shortly answer to some other questions that have come up from Nicolas and from Maria and from Dirk in the last minutes. And thank you also for the comments, Mina and other colleagues. So I think this is a joint session. Thank you, Hugo and Daniela, for really giving very impressive feedback, and also for many good news how the partnership is planned.
Thank you so much, Ivana, also for moderating this session so nicely and clearly. And yes, we've seen a lot of questions coming in, and there might be some unanswered questions. So if there's no time to go into them during this event, we will make sure that we will combine them in a document, and we will try to get the answers working with Daniela and Hugo afterwards, and then share them also with the participants so that everyone is on the same page. So now I wanted to go on to the next part of our event, and I would like to give the floor to my colleague again, Nicola Hassan, Work Package 3 lead, to guide us through Work Package 3 and all the exciting things happening there and things to come. Thanks, Nicola.
Okay, thank you very much, Yasmina. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, great.
Yes.
Perfect. So now it's my turn again, and I'm really happy to now present what we plan to do, what activities are really planned in the CSA under the Work Package 3. And this work package is about building a food systems co-funding network and aligning funding strategies. And what I would like to do first, before I really give you an impression of our plans, is to introduce the team that is behind the work package. And you have already met some of them, but there's more. So you can see here that we have a variety of countries and we have a variety of organizations. But most importantly is also that behind each organization, there's also a network. And Hugo also mentioned that we are a network of networks. So this is very important to bring all this collective knowledge together. So you see here from Denmark, the colleagues from Aarhus and ICROFS, also representing the core organic network. So Ivana and Merete, you are here today. From Germany, we have Research Center Jülich, representing also SASFU2. It's my colleague Frank Henskin. Good to have you here, Frank, and myself. From Poland, we have the Institute of Rural and Agricultural Development of the Polish Academy of Sciences, also representing BioEast. From Italy, we have Cariplo Foundation. And from Belgium, or located in Belgium, we have the Philanthropy Europe Association. We have Julia today with us. I think Valentina and Sarah, you're also here from Cariplo. And you already met Yasmina from the Netherlands, from JPA-HDHL, and her colleagues who are organizing this webinar today. And from Finland, we have the University of Applied Sciences, also representing area of network of regions. So you see we have the so-called classical networks that have been doing the ARANETs, the JPIs, but also the regions, and also here the foundations represented. So this is also new for us to work together, and I'm really happy to have this great team in the work package. Okay, so what are our aims? What we want to do is threefold. We want to connect, we want to start a dialogue, and we want to co-create. And the activities behind that is we try to connect with you using the funders network. So I hope that many of you have already signed up for the network. And we will also send you the invitation again after this meeting so that you can come and join. We also have a map of funders. So that shows all the interested funding organizations that are willing to shape the future partnership, and that will be displayed, or is displayed, on the FOODPath website, and this will be going online very soon. The dialogue. So what we're doing today is, of course, already the dialogue. So the Funders Forum events, and we plan several of them. So we will also have a physical Funders Forum early next year, and you're all invited to join. We have started to do individual interviews with funding organizations to really get some insights and also hear what are the needs and the concerns with regard to preparation of the partnership. We will do surveys, and we will use these tools to work together on the funding strategies, instruments, call procedures. So coming from the big things like the strategies, the priorities, to the instruments, what is possible, what are the legal frameworks, to the call procedures, really how to put that in practice. How is it done in the end when we do the calls, or when we do funding procedures. And another point is how to support the funded projects, because the funding cycle doesn't stop when the call is done, the funding cycle continues. So we also think about how can we support the projects after they have been selected to really also build the partnership, because they are also part of that partnership, of course. So why should you join the funders network and the map? Well, we invite you all to get active. And if you're a funder from the public area, the private area, we need all of you and also your various backgrounds and sectors to really bring up the variety and the diversity that we need to support the objectives that were just pointed out by Hugo and Daniela. We also want to gain an overview of the funding landscape, and I think that's also important if we want to really have a systems approach and really support all the different areas and sectors that are out there. So coming from health to the production, to the processing, and also the consumption. So we need really the diversity. We want to share information, and we also want to, of course, get information from you. We want to collect your questions and your needs. We need your experience and expertise. We cannot do it alone. And we want you to help us shaping and preparing the framework for the future funding. So that is an outlook of the funders map that is on the website that will soon be online. So you can see here that we have already several entries, and they will become more and more. So you can also have a look who's there, who's interested to join the funders network and the partnership in the end. You can see the funding levels. Are they active on a regional level, national level, or even internationally? What kind of an entity is it? Is it an NGO? Is it a governmental organization with a private or public source of funding? And we also ask for a rough statement of the funding priorities based on the three focus areas. And when you zoom in and click on one of those flags, you get information about the different funders that are involved. So here you have an example from Finland. So I cannot pronounce it, but it's a region. So a regional funder with public funding, and they're, for example, interested in production and processing, connection of citizens, politics and governance. So as soon as the website is online, we would invite you to have a look, and also, of course, to come and sign up to be presented on the map. So what we did with the survey that is out there, we also asked for the funding priorities. So just to give you a short picture of what that looks like, and until now we have about 40 entries. So you see that the two first focus areas, nutrition and health, and production, processing and supply, they have the highest priority, and also only high and medium priority, whereas the consumer involvement, citizen participation, politics, policies and governance of the food systems, they also have more medium priority and also low priority. I think these are also the ones where that need to maybe be also better defined what is behind. So these are maybe the ones that need a little bit more explanation. But overall, you see that all of these areas are really important, and that also reflects why they are in this area. So I think that's already a good picture that we can work with further. So what are our envisaged achievements? Well, we want to bring funding organizations together. We want to work on guidelines and recommendations for aligned transnational funding. So as I mentioned, from strategies to instruments to procedures, to really have these guidelines ready for the partnership. And what we mean with aligned funding is, of course, we want to use the synergies. We want to have high quality research, and we also want to have it impact driven. So that is important for us. What is also very important is the collective learning and the mutual learning. So we learn from each other every day. And there's so much out there that it really is exciting to go and explore what is happening in the different regions, in the different countries, and also on European level. And what we also want is, of course, to change, so driving transformation of the funding environment. All of that to enable transdisciplinary and systems-oriented research and to prepare and support for the food partnership. So I have some inspirational examples, and these come from the first set of interviews that have been conducted. And what you see here is some examples from countries. So these are mostly research programs. So what you see first is from the Netherlands. There's a program called NWO-KIC. It's a research funding program on safe and sustainable food and food systems. So they have to cover several topics, which is quite interesting. So one example is to cover healthy and sustainable food products, at the same time safety and the living environment and health. Another example comes from Romania, where they have a resilience research project that covers soil, food, and health. And these are a multitude of projects, and they're connected through the partners within these projects. Another example from Germany is a research program from the bioeconomy area. These are innovation spaces. These are really large consortia with a lot of partners from companies, universities, and the goal is really to create interfaces between research and application. These are some examples, there are more. And of course, there's also examples coming from the EU level. So from the AeroNet co-funds, from the JPI and JPIs. And the first example is coming from the JPI HDHL, FACE, and Oceans. So 3 of them together, supporting the systemic project, which is an integrated approach for sustainable food systems. And it's really about cross-cutting solutions. So identifying knowledge gaps and finding pathways for food system transformation, which is climate resilient and able to cope with societal challenges. And there's a lot in this project. So also for us, this will be interesting to follow. Another example here from the AeroNet SASFOod2 and Cororganic, we did a joint call together, and we have one project among others. This one is Food Diverse, dealing with multi-level perspectives on transforming local food systems across Europe. So they have 5 different countries involved, and they're using the Living Lab methodology to see how diversity can make a change. So these are just a few examples, but we would really like to get more. So please share further examples that you have on program level, on project level, that we can learn from. And these might be good examples on systems approaches, transdisciplinary research, multi-actor, circular, participatory, whatever you find useful and what you would like to see later in the partnership. So the next steps, well, ongoing is the building up of the funders network and the map of funders and the interviews. And new, what will happen during the next upcoming weeks, there will be a survey about the partnership engagement done by FOODPath and SCAR. This will come out very soon, and you're all invited to fill that survey, and we will also inform you, so all the participants will be informed about that. We will also do a survey on funding schemes to get a little bit into the details. And I would also like to announce already the second Funders Forum, beginning of February. So we're still organizing that. It will be a physical meeting. And the focus will be to really exchange on the systems approach. What does it mean? How can it be translated into the funding cycle? And also to further work on the SRIA, which will be by then already in an advanced version. So working further on the topics and on the activities in the SRIA. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for taking us through Work Package 3, which I'm sure is new information to many people. And yeah, very much liked what you emphasized, that we really need to learn from each other, and there's so much out there. So let's not reinvent the wheel, but really try to find those highlights and those examples. So that's why we also need all of you to think along. I saw some questions come in through the chat, so I would like to give, I think, Ivana or Marete the floor for helping us structuring the chat.
Thank you, Yasmina. I think I will continue, and Marete will support if there is a need to have a further exchange. Maybe to start with, thank you, Nicola, very much for presenting the work of the Work Package 3. Two interesting questions, maybe just as a revision of what has been presented. One, is it related? Can it be defined? What is the meaning of the funder precisely? Is it merely a money provider, or is it more than that? By Antonio. And then by Matilde, what are the tasks of this work package in relation to formation of the partnership consortium? So this is, I think, maybe two things. I don't know, Nicola, if you would like to take this.
Yeah, of course. So, well, what is a funder? Well, a funder, I think it is clearly defined for Horizon Europe, probably, that a funder is an organization that can provide funding to third parties. And that depends on the national regulations of that funding entity. I don't know if there's more to say about it, because that's the definition, but I mean, funders are not purely like organizations that just give money. I mean, funding research is much more. I mean, when we work on the alignment of funding strategies and procedures, it's really about creating these funding programs. So you really need to think about what are the needs, how can we translate it with the legal frameworks that we have, and how can we also align it on the European level. So I'm always getting a little bit nervous when people ask, yeah, the funder, he's only giving money. So I think we have a lot of funders here. So maybe in the interactive session, the funders can also say something. And the second question, what is the work of the work package with regard to preparing the partnership? So, well, what we try to do in the work package is really to prepare the funding and to prepare the funders for joining the partnership. And we will do that now by, looking what are the good examples, what are the experiences, what can we bring in, what are the things that we already know, the best practices that we have, and what are the things where we need to innovate a bit to reach the systems approach. What does it mean? So it is really about co-creating and getting into dialogue. How do we work? Also to learn more about the different funding entities that we have, not only the public funders, but also the foundations, the regions. How do they work? How can we integrate them? So really bringing them together and to do this for the partnership, because we don't do it for ourselves. I mean, the CSA is not, it's not just to have a nice exchange, it's really to prepare for the partnership. And we will also be there alongside the partnership, so we can also support further when the partnership has started, because we cannot in the partnership, not everything can be done from year one. So we will also be there to support further.
Thank you, Nicola. There is an interesting question from Joke about the funding map. Are you also allowing private VCs to be on the map? You might connect to AgriFunder, who is following this type of investment, mostly in startups. So this is a little bit about, I think, private companies or industry partners, if I understand it correctly.
So the question was, who is allowed to join the map, right? So,
but I think that is a private partners.
Yeah, maybe explaining a little bit. I see a lot of. I'm working in the region, and for me or us, also funding in private companies, startups is very important to take up innovations from. And what I hear this morning is mostly on like fundamental research, or it seems to me, and yeah, our role is much more getting it into work in the region. So and private investors, but also public investors, and also, for example, ERDF funding is for us very important in this yeah, making things change in the real world.
Yeah. So we definitely want you to be on the map. We want everyone, also the public ones, and also with the high tier Ls, because there's no limitation in the partnership. But of course, like the classical research project funding is of course the basic or applied research. And then when it comes to higher tier Ls, also the instruments will be different ones. But we will also have in the partnership the living labs as one instrument. And they will be also working differently. And these are very important also to drive the change on the local scale or on the regional scale. So we need your expertise also, how you work and what kind of instruments are there then to not only support the research with the lower tier L, but also going higher. So I think you should definitely join.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. I would suggest one question that maybe Daniela could answer, and one question that Hugo could reflect on. For Daniela, Eduardo Rosa has asked that it was not very clear if it's the first question from 10:30. So Daniela, you can also see it in reading it. So member states must be represented by their funding organizations, and these take part in the grant agreement, because ultimately they will co-fund. Or yes, or the participants can be also from universities, research institutions, and private organizations, which must get the co-funding. So, what type of organizations is expected in the partnership?
I mean, as a first, at the first step, it's the ministries, for example, financing it. But then we can also have different RPOs joining the partnership, so the countries can align also what makes most sense to join. And then, of course, in the external courts, once the member states joins with the ministry in the external courts, also universities and research organizations can ask for funding via the external courts. So not everyone needs to join the grant agreement then, of course, but can engage in the partnership in the external courts.
Just to make it very clear, for instance, in Portugal, we have the Portuguese Scientific Foundation, which is the funding institution of Portugal for research and scholarships and so on. So this institution that takes part in the grant agreement with the participation of the individual institutions, private or public institutions, universities, and so on. So the link should be to the Scientific Portuguese Foundation, the Science Portuguese Foundation, which is the funder institution in Portugal, should get the money from the ministry and get involvement in the partnership.
Or alternatively, you are asking if every single institution should be part of the grant agreement.
Yeah, because I think if you have all the...
I think the first makes more sense, because you also need to make it operational still in the consortium. Just to give the example, for example, of the partnership I just mentioned, I think there was also a statement on we should learn from ongoing partnerships. And I think we do. There was a partnership stakeholder forum just 2 weeks ago, where, of course, other partnerships are in a different stage. So we can also learn from their consortium building in like still keeping the consortium operational. So if there is a more central institution, that makes more sense to join the consortium and then rather like spread it out within the individual institutions in the country.
Yeah, that's my feeling. That it's better to have this governmental institution that links to the partnership, and this one in each country gathers the involvement of individual institutions through this let's say umbrella.
Exactly, exactly, because they are linked to it, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. I think we have a last question for this session, and then we will take other questions maybe in the next Q&A sessions, or we will just answer them together, as already Yasmina has pointed out. From Monique Axelrose, there is a question that SRIA, so the Strategic Research Innovation Agenda, must be delivered by the end of January 2023. What is your exact activity among the CSA in relation to the SRIA? And I think that maybe Hugo would have some feedback on this.
Yes, thanks very much for the question and for all questions, because it's really a lot of thoughts. For the SRIA task force under the supervision, of course, of the SCAR, Monique, that is trying to collect with the task force and the group of experts all information and feedbacks that are coming in the open consultation to finalize it. Then it will be a final version. There will be a stamp on, and this is the final version that is used then for the future partnership. Of course, this consortium may have other thoughts, and it may also be updated and so on, but it serves as the first part. What in the CSA we are not going to do is repeat this process. That doesn't make sense. There have been so many experts involved. We may all have different thoughts about it, but what we are going to try to do is to look to the contents. Can we translate what is written into the SRIA into real elements that can be used in annual work programs? That is one. And second, can we link it to what are policy measures today or tomorrow? What we do in research, can it be used? And also in education programs. So we like to make the link. And of course, also, and that was the question that was posed on innovation. Yes, I think it's true that there seems to be a little bit more attention to basic research, but if we like to contribute to sustainable solutions, it needs to be implemented. Therefore, we have one full work package in this preparatory action focused on that. So focused on innovation in living labs, as Nicola also has said. We have area, which is a regroupment of the regions that I think you know yourself or maybe involved in, that we can link it with the smart specialization strategies, also to cover innovation activities locally. And of course, we need to align with EIT Food, which is fully focused on innovation, and Circular Bio-Based Europe, which is also a public-private partnerships, also with a strong focus on innovation, that we are not going to reinvent what they already did or can do better. So we need to have there some alignment. Then there was a question about the small countries. They play a crucial role in that. I think if we only focus on topics that are EU-wide but of less relevance to the smaller countries, then we don't do well our work. It is your priorities that count as much as all the others that we can do EU-wide. So this really needs to be partnerships where all countries, small or large, etc., with their regions are involved. So I've took into account also this other question when I was reading it. Thanks a lot for the questions. And
thank you, Hugo. This is Yasmina again. Thank you also, Ivana, for moderating the chat, and thank you everyone for asking questions and thinking along. We are now going for a 10-minute break to give you some time to stretch your legs and maybe get some tea and coffee, and then we'll dive into a real interactive session. So the time for sitting back and relaxing has finished, and we will do some work. So I would really like to see you back at 3 minutes past 11. We have exactly 10 minutes then. Thank you so much. Welcome back, everyone. I'm really happy to see actually that we only had about 20 people drop off, so we still have almost 80 people online. Very nice. So that means that I assume you're looking forward to doing some work in this working session. And yeah, you've probably heard of it, but I think it really much illustrates that we really want to dream and think, because I think someone, I don't know who, said a long time ago, if you do what you always did, you get what you always got. And we don't want to get what we always got. We want to get different things. So as Nicola already mentioned, and Hugo and Daniela, we really want to strive for impact. Research and innovation really makes an impact and changes food systems for the better. So we really want to think of how the funding landscape and how ways of funding can change to strive for that impact. So for this next session, I really want you to sort of step out of your current role. You are not yourself anymore. You are dreaming about a sustainable food system in Europe, and you need to really think of what that means for research and innovation. So dream and don't stay in the box you are in now. And this is really like a kind of appetizer for the Physical Funders Forum, which will be held in February, which you are also all invited to, during which we will dive much deeper into what does funding of system research mean, and what is a systemic approach, and what is real transdisciplinarity. So we will go deeper into those elements. So this is kind of an appetizer, as one of my work package 3 colleagues so aptly mentioned last week. So as I said, I would really like you to step out of your current role, imagine that the partnership Sustainable Food Systems has been a great success, and that R&I played an important role to enable this transformation and to really make food systems sustainable, healthy, resilient, and supporting a healthy and thriving population. So what we will do now for the next 50 minutes is you will be divided into groups randomly. You don't need to do anything. Maybe you just have to click OK on your screen once my colleague Larissa divides you into groups. You will have a facilitator from our team in each of the groups. So if you have questions, you can ask the facilitator, because we don't have time for questions now. And the facilitator will guide you through the process, because we have 3 questions prepared, and you can decide as a group whether you cover 1, 2, or all 3 of the questions if you're feeling very ambitious today. And then we will come back to the plenary, and one of the group members can summarize the discussions and provide us with highlights from what was discussed in the group. Yes, I think those are all the practicalities. Again, think, dream, think innovative. Don't think of the current ways of doing things, but if you could really dream and make food systems different, what would that be? So with that, Larissa, can you please divide us into groups, and that will magically happen in a few seconds. Yeah, so welcome back. I wanted to give the floor for this plenary to my colleague Nicola or Ivana. I'm not sure who's going to facilitate this part of the working groups, but please go ahead.
I think we did not exchange who's doing that.
Then
So
I
we
will do
can-
that, no problem. Then I would actually like to give the floor to the first group. Do we actually have group numbers, Larissa? Just looking at my colleague Larissa here. Yeah, there should have been a group 1, and it was in your when you went into the group. So I would like to ask.
Mina, I think that I saw number 1. I don't know if that is formally, if anybody else claims this number, but I think that that was a group where I participated, and I would also like to thank again all the members. We have decided that Emmanuel will be our representative. Emmanuel, please, floor is yours. And again, thanks very much to all the members. It was really great discussion.
Okay, which timing I have, because it's a lot of discussions and only 3 points.
3 minutes
max.
Okay, because I didn't have the time to make a synthesis of everything, but so what we discussed, so some key points. Within the partnership, we really need more transdisciplinary projects approach. I'm talking about the impact, the future impact of the partnership. Also, it will conduct to policy more, synchronized policy coming together at regional and national level. More multi-stakeholder research. Also, clustering is essential. Is an essential point. We need also more cross-fertilization between different disciplines in research. And something that was said that was really nice, it's a need for an innovation trajectory from fundamental to applied research, going also through the consumer needs. And I have a lot of notes, and I don't know what can I add.
Emmanuel, would you like me to assist with 1 or 2 bullet points?
Yes, maybe.
Yeah. I think there was a very interesting thought regarding this vision 10 years ahead. Is it really enough time to make a change? 10 years, how many calls is this? How many research calls? So I think that our group have said that if we reach this clustering that is very needed among different ministries, so Ministry of Environment with food and agriculture, if we reach the clustering among applied and fundamental sciences, and we are closer, step closer, that we have this embedded in our system, then in 10 years time, I think we will have impact. But if we have really an impact that is measurable on all kind of small performance indicator, that could be short time, but becoming more interlinked, that is certainly what we should aim through the partnership. And that was a message from all our participants. And thank you, Emmanuel, for highlighting some of the elements.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Group 1. Interesting outcomes and interesting thoughts coming out there. Group 2, can you summarize your discussion outcomes in maximum 3 minutes?
Yeah, for Group 2, Matilda said she would. She was note taker and she will refer what we have discussed.
Yes, I will present what I made note of. I mean, we had everybody had said something, and if I cannot quote everybody, please add on what I'm saying. But it's also a summary, and I can actually start with the way the first presentation just ended. Because I think there was a consensus in our group. At least several speakers mentioned this, speaking about impact. We also had, actually, we dived from the beginning into the impact question. While many things were said towards the end, it was also highlighted that actually 10 years is really too short to be able to have a real impact in this connected to this these goals. Nevertheless, one of the very good impacts that was mentioned is if we learn from each other as partners, and we share this in a very mutual way, and within the partners of the partnership, but also to the outside world. So there were things mentioned about having some innovative platforms that are really very resource efficient, and also outreaching to the outside world, so that not only the partners but also outside beneficiaries can benefit. So this was very really in different ways. Many of the group mentioned the learning and sharing as a very big asset to this. Also, speaking about the impact to consumers and citizens was mentioned. It is a very important pursued goal of the partnership. So this was, it was said, we have to benefits EU citizens, and research should really be focused on reaching this goal to have a benefit to the EU citizens and the eating behaviors, respecting the different cultures, and this. So then that was then it was said, okay, also the change, also the way the industries and the producers work. This is very important, and we should think how to measure this. So there was a discussion about how to measure, and there were different things that were shared. Of course, it's possible to use some already existent ways of impact measurement, but still thinking about something even more innovative and more efficient to see concrete results. Let me see.
Maybe you can round up. Yeah, sorry.
No, sure. But if somebody from my group now thinks, okay, also add this, and I'll be also looking at my sheet. But I think that's about it, to be honest. But please add if I.
Thank you so much, Matilda, Group 2.
Right.
Sorry, Group 3. Now I'm confused.
I was 2, so then the next is 3.
Yeah, the next one is 3.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
that will be me. Well, we were a very, it was a very nice group. So we have people that are funders per se, unlike some others that received the funding. So it was very interesting to see the both perspectives. There's some points that we were discussing, so I'm going to just mention 4 of them. The importance of focusing on consumers and children. So, for example, by funding campaigns in changing attitudes of children towards more sustainable and healthy foods. But also we discussed that it's not fair to put all the pressure on consumers and children. So they're children, for example. I mean, you can't explain them these things. So these changes should start in policy like affect industry and advertising, for example. Then, well, the importance of the multi-actor approach. Important to look, of course, at the whole chain. No actor should be omitted. Industry, consumers, education. It's a big challenge, but like we have to find a way, of course, to feed everybody and get the food that is needed. Also in the multi-actor approach, we were discussing about the regulation from the European Commission and also at the national level. So it's important to include them include them even more in the projects, for example. Partnerships could, partnerships will help us build these networks and connections with the actors, get the people together, strong institutions to strengthen the collaboration. Then the third point was drafting impact pathway. So there's no impact if we only focus in one aspect. We need to take into account interactions, economy, system approach will be very important, but make it very difficult, of course. It will be important to measure the impact of the change, for example, in 10 years, monitor the implementation and evaluate the project's impact. This is something that I don't think it's currently done in the EU-funded projects. I don't know the rest. How the project has been valorized in the market and the education, for example. So really look into the impact of the project and the results. Also, that it's important to work on side streams, energy savings, right choices for raw materials, education on this, and make sure that all the changes are being implemented and take into consideration the TRL level. So also in connection to this, we were discussing that it would be nice to have a follow-up or continuation project as a continuation of the EU-funded projects, because we see that sometimes when the product gets to the TRL that it's good for commercialization, for example, or go out to the market, the project ends. So it will be nice to have an extra funding to only finalize projects. So this to allow them to have this continuity, doesn't have to be such a big amount as the project number one, but to focus on a certain outcome that could be exploited, and we could make use of it. Some of our funder colleagues there in the group, they were saying us that this is common in other programs, in other funding programs, to have follow-up projects.
Sorry, Camilla, can you round up? Sorry.
Sorry, I talk too much. Sorry. So we thought that follow-up projects could be something that we should definitely look up into. And then, the importance of the multi-project approach, and to measure the impact of the projects on a long term. And take policymakers more on board. So we were also saying that maybe in the projects we could have support from some policymakers, not as a project partner, but to have them there, guiding on how this outcome can be actually implemented. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know, Nicola, if you want to add anything else, or anybody from the group.
Thank you, Camilla. Very nice, exhaustive, I'm sure, summary, and some very interesting ideas coming out there. I would like to move to group 4 now.
Yes, I can share a bit on what group 4 has discussed. Probably I'll be a bit shorter. That's my way of talking. We first discussed the first question, what changes are needed. And I summarized that in 2 points, actually, in the process and the content wise. Remarks that were made by colleagues actually from a lot of different countries. So that was interesting to hear. Process wise, it means that we should actually use the data and the research that is already available. So don't reinvent the wheel. We shouldn't forget to allocate enough funding to dissemination, because we can do a lot of research, but if we forget to actually disseminate it, then what will happen to that research? It won't be used, and that would be a waste of money and time and effort. We should make also sure that the national and international frameworks do not compete with each other. So we have European funding networks and schedules and schemes, but we have those as well as national level. So we should make sure that they become complementary instead of competing with each other. Content-wise, of course, it should be transdisciplinary, which has been said a lot already. We shouldn't forget about nutrition, which is sometimes getting less attention. Consumers' involvement is very important, and their perspective on those issues, for instance, when it comes to creating behavioral change, which we want in the end, of course. And we should make sure that we coordinate between partnerships. So what issues do we try to address in different partnerships, and that we distinguish between each other, not overlap too much. That's how I understood it, at least. And there should be thematic diversity, as it says already, in transdisciplinarity. The second question, what impact is and how to achieve impact? We said that the local relevance is important, that creating knowledge that can be used is important, can be used in different cultures, etc. And that also to get everyone to the same vibration. I thought it was a nice way of putting it, like relating to the bird that was shown earlier this morning. And that the synergies that we can actually create between member states is important for the impact of these partnerships, because otherwise we can do things on national level, but especially the synergy between member states is important. And that we should have indexes of the impact. So we look at social, economic, health-wise impact, that we should be clear on that before we start, instead of thinking about it only when we have started already. So the start of a project in terms of formulating is important, as well as taking into perspective that it's a longer term process. That's it.
Thank you so much, Ellen. Thank you, Group 4, for all that interesting input, and very relevant also for us to take along. I would now like to ask Group 5 to
yes,
highlight.
I'm sorry, I forgot to ask for a person to report back, but I invite all people from the group to jump in if I'm forgetting anything or I misunderstood anything. So, I mean, as it was said for the previous group, I mean, the importance of transdisciplinarity is very important. So, I mean, to break the silos between the different, sectors, even within universities, and make sure that cross competencies and the research projects are involving researchers from different disciplines, which is not always given. But on the other side, but it's also important to make sure that those researchers are incentivized in working on transdisciplinary projects and research projects, and also that this systemic approach that implies, working with teams of researchers with different backgrounds is also valued by the scientific world, let's say. Like, for example, making sure that it's not difficult to, I mean, this is not my area, but I just report. So that we research projects that have a systemic approach and teams with different backgrounds are valued then when it comes to publish results of this research, and maybe like new type of journals could be also an option to consider, journals valuing this aspect. And dissemination was another aspect that was mentioned as an important part. So making sure that the research results are disseminated. Of course, it's important beyond, working across cross-sectoral, let's say, within university and research and the research work, but also it's important to involve different stakeholders. And this is, of course, it's a challenge to find a common grounds in terms of terminology, but also common objectives. And some work has been done already within FOODPathS to prepare the ground for this dialogue. And to build confidence in consortia. I mean, the importance, it was highlight the importance of confidence and freedom within project consortia. Then there was like it was mentioned as well as it was in the past, like the importance to look into consumers' behaviors and choices, but also to don't forget that work is needed also on policy areas, and making sure that topics like ultra processed food, and it's kept in the loop of conversation. So making sure that conversations are like that, we are not missing pieces along the way. And by several people participating in the group, there were mention of concrete projects around living labs and local projects that were involving different stakeholders from the public and private sector, that even if they were implemented at local level, could have a snowball effect. So a wider impact. So this is an important point that was mentioned. Even if the project is implemented at local level, it may be replicated and have a snowball effect. And an additional point was that it's important that we focus on research that is ready to be used, so it's replicable, because this is like a key aspect to make. To make the transformation of food systems a reality. So to fill also the knowledge gap and challenge of implementing research. So this is in a nutshell. I don't know if anybody from my group wants to add.
Thank you so much, Julia. Yeah, I think that was a very insightful summary. I just wanted to quickly move back on to group 6, Jouke.
Thanks. I didn't know the number. Jasmina, thanks. Yes, we also had a very interesting discussion. Maybe first on impact. Some things were said on really connecting to needs. So not of thought needs, but really dive deep in society, or into, for example, also the companies that are doing food production, and what are their needs to have a more sustainable system. Also was mentioned that researchers should be pushed out of their ivory tower, so the whole society knows better what they are doing. It's very hard to find their expertise or what they've been researched outside the research world. And on impact also really involve the citizen of the future. So young people were examples from situations in Greece that they already started kindergarten involving children in food system things. So that were on impact. Then on the funding, we had some comments, for example, from smaller countries, but also for smaller organizations that could be involved, that make the funding flexible, not rigid, and also not very bureaucratic. There are examples from other projects already available that can be done, but often it's not so easy to. So there should we pay attention to. And indeed, I already heard it further involve also other types of ministries in funding, and not only agriculture or R&D type of ministries, but also health and education or industry ministries. That was on funding mostly, as maybe also focus the partnership not only on the large corporations to be involved, but also try to involve food SMEs, because they're the main part of food producers in Europe. And yeah, then we heard some nice examples from various regions working with living labs. So I think you can take it up with the comments, Jasmina, on these living labs that already did very nice work in cities and working with all kinds of stakeholder groups, also the usual suspects in this, and so that's, I think, for our group, the main topics, and a lot of other things were also mentioned in our group. So yes, thanks.
Thank you so much, Jouke, and the rest of Group 6. I think, yeah, Jouke, you aptly summarized all the discussions we had. And with that, I also want to bring this particular session to an end. I think we got some really interesting ideas from you, some very and nice examples also that I heard from different groups. And I hope that you also, in the chat that my colleague Larissa indicated, that please, all the note takers, could you send your notes to the email address indicated in the chat, the JPI HDHL email address, so that we can also collect those. Because as I mentioned, this is really, as Julia put it last week in our meeting, it's like an appetizer. It's like a first taste of what we're going to be diving into during the physical forum, funders forum, and the process after that, to really look at, okay, how can we revolutionize the funding landscape? What does systemic research funding mean? What does a systems approach mean? So this is like the first step towards diving into that deeper all together. And we really need your participation and your thoughts on that. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your active participation in that. And we've come to the end, the last 5 minutes of this first FOODPathS Funders Forum. I'll just share my screen for the last rounding up. I hope this is working, and otherwise I will just continue talking. Can you see my screen? Okay, well, anyway. I really wanted to round up and also explain a bit, looking ahead, what you can expect from us in the coming period. As Nicola and I think also Hugo mentioned, there will a survey will be coming up as from the SCAR Food Systems Working Group together with FOODPathS to really gauge your interest for the future partnership. So please look out for that. That will be coming your way. Please don't forget also to sign up for the funders network and the map that Nicola showed. It would be really nice to get you know, a broad picture of who's interested and who is doing what at which level, and sort of the different focus areas. And also, as mentioned, we are also trying to collect these good examples that you also gave during the working groups that we can learn from, so that we don't need to reinvent the wheel, but use, you know, build on what's already there. And of course, the physical funder forum, which will be held somewhere in February, and we will communicate as quickly as we can to you the actual date, so that you can make arrangements, because you're all invited, where we'll be really diving very deeply into this food systems approach for research funding, and also looking at the elements of the SRIA connected to that. So with this, yeah, I really wanted to round up and first of all thank all the speakers. Daniela Lüth from the European Commission, thank you for taking us along in the food systems partnership and what we can expect the coming period. Hugo de Vries, coordinator of INRAE, thank you for taking us along FOODPathS, the little tugboat, so to speak. Thank you, Nicola, Hassan, our work package 3 lead for taking us along in work package 3. And thank you everyone for all your active participation in the working groups. We will try to summarize also, or actually make an overview of the unanswered questions. There might still be questions in the chat that haven't been answered due to lack of time. So we will try to make an overview and get the answers to you as soon as possible. We have your email addresses through your registration. We will also make a short summary of the meeting, and we have, of course, the recording, and we'll send you the link to that if you want to look back on different elements of the recording. And finally, I want to really thank my ZonMW colleagues sitting with me in the room here. You can't see them, but Larissa van der Bent, Bernadette Conrad, have really been working hard in the background here to make sure this meeting runs. So yeah, I wanted to thank you as well, and thank everyone for your active participation. And with that, I wanted to round up. Thank you.